Hello and welcome to another episode of A Day in the District. I'm your host, Chelsea Whittington, and A Day in the District is a program specifically designed to help you stay in touch with your Gary Community School Corporation. It's customary for me to have a variety of guests on the show who help make a difference in the district, and today is no different. I'm so pleased to welcome my colleague and friend, Cliff Caldwell, who is our Director of Security. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to. You have a lot going on, but I definitely wanted to make it a point to have a conversation with you around school safety. It's never an easy topic, but it's a topic that has to be discussed on a regular basis as we are responsible for our most precious assets, our children, our staff, and anyone who comes into our school buildings. Cliff, I can't help but to think about the recent acts of violence that have taken place in school districts across the country. So disheartening, but I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit more about the things that we have had in place, will have in place as we enter a new school year. So I'm going to be quiet and you tell us some of the things that we know will have our children safe in our buildings.
Yes, so as you mentioned, there has been some violence, an uptick in violence in school districts all across the country. But I will say about Gary Community School Corporation is we've always been kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to school safety. And I can remember when I was in school, we had the metal detectors and all those kind of things, and we locked the doors. And people from other school districts said, I can't believe they're doing that. Metal detectors in schools? Now people are trying to get metal
It's
detectors.
the norm, right?
Yeah, and a lot of school districts can't get metal detectors because of the chip shortage and production shortage. But we're ahead of the curve on that. We have metal detectors in our secondary schools, our high school and our middle schools. All of our students and visitors pass through a metal detector. Something that's new to the district is our safe visitor system.
Okay.
Where all of our visitors and vendors and contractors that come into our building, we check their ID through a system called Safe Visitor. And it lets us know that they're good to go. They don't have anything in their background that we should be concerned about with them being around our students.
Now that's very comforting, and I know one of the first things when I joined the team here at the district, they were like, you need to report to security,
Yes.
get your ID, and make
Yes.
sure that it's scanned and compatible with the system. And since then, they've done a widespread implementation of the same process for our young people as well. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about the ID system for our students.
Yes, so all of our students in our secondary buildings, the middle school, the high school, students that attend the Career Center, we now require all of them to have an ID on so we can easily identify them. And something that's new that we're going to be doing for the coming school year, we're going to be putting crisis hotline numbers on the back of the student IDs.
Oh, wow.
To give just another resource for our students, and even the parents at home. The parents will be able to see the numbers if they need any resources.
Yes.
Yes.
That's great. So it's a photo ID.
Yes.
And then there's like a student ID number.
Yes.
And this helps in a variety of ways when it comes to busing.
Yes.
If a child is supposed to be on a certain bus and
Yes.
the bus drivers can have the list of who's supposed to be on there. And then quite frankly, if we're not wearing our identification, that's
Yes.
a red flag
That's
for
a red
security
flag,
to say,
yes.
you
Yes.
aren't supposed to be in this building or you need to
Yes.
circle back to the office.
Yes.
Now, Cliff, talk to me a little bit about, we talked about the metal detectors, and there's a stigma that goes with that.
Yes.
But how do we dispel that? Because there may be some community members or parents to say, well, you're making it seem like we're violent because we have these metal detectors, but what does that really do for us?
Really, it's a deterrent. We're not saying that we have violent students or violent community members or violent visitors. It's a deterrent, though, for those people who may want to come and try to bring something into our buildings. Not necessarily students or not necessarily a community member, but there are people out there who just have some bad intentions. And, we've seen that all across the country. And that's the main focus of the metal detectors is deterrent.
Yes,
Deterrent.
and I'm absolutely fine with it. Actually, when I go to public places and I need to
Yes.
have my bag searched,
Yes.
I recognize that it's not that they feel I'm a threat. They're,
Yes.
doing it for my
Yes.
safety. So there are some things that are prohibited on school grounds.
Yes.
And so as parents are getting ready for back to school with their children, can you talk about some of the things that children obviously shouldn't bring to school? We know guns and knives,
Yes.
but other things like mace. What else should they not bring to school that
Yes.
would stop them at the door?
Yes. A big thing is the what we call the chemical weapon, basically the mace, the OC spray.
Okay.
The mace. You can't have that on school property. And I do realize that some students may carry it, especially our female students, because they may not feel comfortable walking from a bus stop and things like that. But I try to reiterate, if a student doesn't feel safe or a parent doesn't feel safe with their kid walking to the bus stop and that kind of thing, just reach out to us, the security department, and we can beef up our patrols in that area. We can make sure we have a presence. Any safety concern, just bring it to us. So yeah, the chemical spray, you mentioned the firearms and knives, of course, those are the obvious ones, but also the vape pens and things like that. You can't have those on school property. Yeah, so
Okay.
if we catch those at the door, we take those.
Okay, that's good to know,
Yes,
because
yes.
sometimes parents will say, well, I just didn't know.
Yes.
There's another mechanism that we talk about that is a safety precaution that we recommend. I don't know if it's a mandate per se. It's the clear book bags.
Yes.
What benefit would our clear book bags bring?
Oh, that'd be a great benefit, especially when you talk about the metal detectors. That will streamline that process, because right now, without the clear backpacks, we have to check every bag. With the clear ones, we can see right in, and then it kind of reminds the kids like,
Yeah.
okay, I shouldn't have this, or I
Yeah.
shouldn't have that. But I really believe in clear book bags. It really helps
Okay.
us out. Yeah.
Okay, parents. So our director of security, Cliff Caldwell, says he believes in clear book bags. We do have some on order or purchase
Yes.
for our high school students, but
Yes.
again, these things are being done to keep us all safe.
Yes.
Before we go into our next segment, I want to ask you one last question, really more so about you
Yes.
and your background, because I just jumped right in on
Yes.
school safety.
Yes.
What is your background that brings you into security?
Well, I'm from Gary. I still live in Gary. I'm a graduate of Westside High School, class of 2008.
Great guess.
So yeah, after I finished high school, I went to Vincennes University, where I studied law enforcement. And when I finished there, I joined the state police, where I was on the security detail for the Governor Mitch Daniels, for a little while. Then I left there and I got into university policing, where I was a police officer at Indiana State University. And then I came back home in 2013 to Gary because there was an uptick in violence. And so I joined the Indiana University Police Department, Northwest, here in Gary. And from there, I went to the Sheriff's Department. And the Sheriff, Oscar Martinez, actually, he wanted me to be a school resource officer. And that's where I
Okay.
really got to the school safety thing.
And here we
Here I am.
are.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, welcome. This is A Day in the District. I'm your host, Chelsea Whittington, chatting with my friend and Director of Security, Cliff Caldwell. When we come back, we're going to talk about a few things that you can do to help keep your children safe this school year. Stay right where you are, and we'll be right back.
Don't tell anybody, but I'm a bookworm. I'm one of those very ambitious, highly motivated, overachievers you've heard about. When I enrolled in Gary Community Schools, I thought I'd be all alone. Sort of like an anomaly or a unicorn. Turns out, that wasn't true at all. There's lots of us here.
Gary Schools. Strong, resilient, built for education.
Welcome back to A Day in the District. I'm your host, Chelsea Whittington, and I'm so delighted to be here talking all things security with our Director of Security, Cliff Caldwell. Cliff, that was a big smile for me when you said you were a graduate of Westside High School. Everybody knows
Yes,
Westside alum hold a dear place in my heart. But I have to ask you, since you were telling me about your immense background in security, what is it like to be back overseeing the security of a school district that raised you, essentially?
Yes, it's basically a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to come back to the school district and do something. And several years ago, I thought about coming back kind of as a part-time SRO when they created those positions here, part-time school resource officer. And my schedule at my full-time police job just didn't allow that. And so then when this opportunity came up, I jumped right on it, of course.
And when I saw it come through, I was like, Cliff, that is so awesome.
Yes.
The other piece to that about being back home is the relation. Well, you've been here, but I
Yes.
mean
Yes.
inside the schools,
Yes.
there's a lot of talk about building or the desire to build positive relationships
Yes.
between law enforcement and young people. So
Yes.
we have to just lay it bare. It's
Yes.
not always a good situation.
Yes.
And when we see police,
Right.
we may get nervous. We may run the other way for no reason.
Right.
What are we doing in the Gary schools to help foster more positive relationships with our young people?
Yes, so we're moving back towards that school resource officer model.
Officer friendly?
Yes, yes, yes. And that's basically a three-tiered a model. The school resource officer, the police officer in the school should be a mentor, informal counselor, and then most importantly a police officer.
Yeah.
But not to forget the mentor part and that informal counselor part. You should be there to be a resource to the students and the staff also. Somebody they can talk to, express their concerns to, and you can work with them through their problems and help
Yes.
them get to different types of services that they may need. Yes.
So one of the other things in the advent of the pandemic, the Gary Community School Corporation has implemented a very robust program around mental health,
Yes.
mental wellness,
Yes.
and I feel like those relationships with security fold into that as
Yes.
far as some of our children had anxiety about
Yes.
returning. There may be some what we call beef. When you
Mm-hmm.
see students, I haven't seen you in a long time, and when I get back to
Yes.
school, I'm going to get you.
Yes.
And I feel like having our security being more of that mentor that you spoke of helps to ease those types of relationships. And there's one area that I see in the schools is that we have more female officers.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Yes, we're trying to diversify our staff, and one part of that is bringing on more female officers because our female students may feel more comfortable talking with the female officer than they do with the
Absolutely.
male officer. And then we also training our staff, our security staff, more so on being proactive rather than reactive. So basically what I mean by that, if you hear some chatter or you hear kids talking about they are upset or they want to fight somebody, it's the obligation of security to pull the student aside and talk to them, and then you can kind of bring those students together and try to work something out, and mediate that, be a mediator in that
Yes.
situation. Yes.
And what we're also trying to do, Cliff, is get away from that term of being a snitch.
Yes.
In this
Yes.
day and age,
Yes.
we really need you to say something. And then an additional layer we have that we didn't have was, well, you said 2008, social media.
Social
And
media.
so how much of that does that play from a security standpoint where students will post information, and
Yes.
a lot of times when we see about the crimes in the schools, they'll go back and look at the person's social profile and they'll say,
Yes.
well, he was posting guns every day, or
Yes.
he said he was being bullied.
Yes.
What do we do in that vein when we have that whole online social media cell phone piece?
Yes, so I have two people on my staff, and they are excellent. They're experts at that. So we kind of get ahead of those things when we see anything involving our students on social media. If they're maybe talking about a fight, or maybe they're going back and forth on social media, or anything, any improper postings, we make it a point to reach out to that student. We bring the administration in on it, the principals and the deans, and we work through those situations.
I love it. This is so important.
Yes.
So it's time for the countdown. Cliff, I want you to talk to our parents, our grandparents, all of the guardians, as again, blink and it'll be time to go back to school, right?
Yes.
So we are in the throes of getting ready for our young people from a security standpoint, from an academic standpoint, from an extracurricular standpoint. If there were, say, 3 or 4 top things that you would tell the community to help get their students ready and secure and how they can protect themselves, what are some of the tips you would give?
Yes, I would. I would tell the parents to talk to the students about the importance of rules and procedures, wearing a uniform, and coming and being involved. I would like the parents to be involved. It shouldn't be we just interact with the parents when something bad happens. We want the parents to come and be involved, and we plan to do more outreach from the security department, programs and seminars for our parents and interacting, especially our fathers. We like for our fathers to get more involved. So one thing I did when I was over at previous school district, we did Real Men Cook with our fathers. And
Really?
men tend to be more competitive, so that was a thing. They all brought their grills out to the parking lot at the high school.
Now, you said that.
Yeah, so
Men tend to be more competitive.
That's it, yeah. So we want to do more things like that, engage with our parents, and we want our parents and our grandparents and our guardians to engage with us as a security department, as a school corporation, and we can collaborate and make our school district even more safer.
So if there is a parent or a dad out there that's watching that says, I like what I'm hearing, I want to get involved and I want to get started right away, because there are some initiatives where there are fathers in our community and they walk the children to school on the first day, but it's far beyond that, Cliff, as you well know.
Yes.
How do they get in touch with your team to get involved?
Yes, so they can call any of the school buildings, and if in the school building, they'll be able to transfer you to security services, and those calls usually ring right to me, and if I don't answer, leave a message, I call everybody back. And we can go from there. We collaborate. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
One last question before we wrap up, Cliff. There is a situation that we are definitely tackling within the district regarding our closed school buildings.
Yes.
Can you just enlighten our community regarding the surveillance and security of those buildings that are currently not in use but
Yes.
still belong to the district? Real quick.
Yes, so we do surveillance on those buildings. We make sure those buildings are secured. Those buildings are alarmed, so
Leave them alone.
Leave them alone, because the alarm will go off, and not only will our staff respond, but the local police will respond. So, but we are securing those buildings, and we do monitor them.
Thank you,
Yes.
Cliff. And thank you for being in this role, being in your own school district,
Yes.
serving our young people and keeping us all safe. You have been watching A Day in the District, a program designed especially for the Gary Community School Corporation. We have ended our chat with Cliff Caldwell, and now we're going to switch lanes. We're going to talk to the community about a special anti-violence initiative coming soon. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
It's gross. I don't really want to talk about it. She didn't want to at first, but I mean, it's no big deal. Everybody does it.
I was ready, totally ready, because we had been practicing this dance for weeks.
He was supposed to take this girl to this dance, but
I sprained my ankle at track practice.
I hate sharing anything personal. It's so disgusting. For the dance, I let her wear my shoes and she hated it, but I thought she looked great in them.
he could barely even walk.
I ended up taking some pills for my pain.
Yeah, they were my mom's, but
It didn't go well.
If it's not yours, if it's not yours,
if it's not yours,
Hey you,
don't take it.
don't take it.
Don't take it.
don't take it. You won't believe what happened next.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paige McNulty. I'm the manager for the Gary Community School Corporation, and I am pleased to be joined today with the Jackson 5 family members, Tito and Marlon Jackson.
Hi,
how are you? Thanks for
Nice
being
to
here
see you
today.
again. Not only are we members of the world famous Jackson 5, but we are proud products of the Gary schools.
Growing up in Gary, our school system afforded great opportunities from academics to extracurricular activities.
And today is no different. This is why we encourage you to enroll your child in the Gary schools today.
For more information, please call 219-881-5466 or visit garyschools.org. And please remember, enroll in Gary Schools today.
Yes,
That's right.
definitely enroll.
Gary Schools.
Strong, resilient.
Built for education.
Welcome back to A Day in the District. I'm your host, Chelsea Whittington, and today we have been talking all things school security and safety. What more important facet of safety is there than community involvement? And so for our final segment today, I am joined by someone who is no stranger to me, no stranger to this community, and a staunch advocate for young people. Pastor Dwight Gardner of the Trinity Missionary Baptist Church is here representing the Baptist Ministers Conference of Gary and vicinity. That's a mouthful, huh, Pastor?
Yes, it is.
I said it, though. Welcome to the stage.
Well, thank you. I find it's an honor for me to be here and to share with you. As you know, I love Chelsea of Whittington and the work that she does.
Thank you.
Her family is a pillar in the Trinity Baptist Church of Gary and community, and difference makers in our community at large. So it's an honor for me to be here and share
Well,
today.
thank you. For me, it's like one of those duh moments when we talk about advocacy for young people and partnering with community organizations that truly have a voice, have influence that can get things done. That would definitely be the Baptist Ministers Conference. So if we rewind back to our good old referendum days, there was a time where you and all of your fellow pastors took a stand to say, we will not only support the referendum, but why don't you all up it and give our young people even more opportunities for success. That got done and done. And here we are again, and the partnership has continued, and now we have moved into a different project that I am excited about, and it is exactly why I invited you here to talk more about it. I talked with Cliff, our director of security, in the previous segment about things that happen with safety and security in the schools. But we know that there's a lot more that goes on outside of our buildings, and we've called on the clergy to work with us on helping our community to be safe. So what have you developed?
Well, we're excited. The leadership of the Baptist Ministers Conference under Pastor DeJuan Bynum of Christian Valley Baptist Church really does have a heart for the community. And one of the issues for us, not just locally but nationally, is violence in the inner city. Just a few days ago, our hearts were wrenched with sadness about the 5-month-old child that was murdered in a drive-by shooting, where the home that the child was in was shot up.
Yes.
And we recognize in that the issues in our community as it relates to this is not just gun violence. The gun is not the problem. The heart is the problem. And so under Pastor Bynum's leadership, he wanted to develop what we came to be known as the Safe Summer Campaign, or Peace Summer. There are 3 parts to it. The first part was a blood drive, which was completed last week. It was hosted at Trinity. We had well over 40 donors for the day. You even gave, and so did I.
Yes, actually took my blood, Pastor.
and so the first part of it was the blood drive. The second part of it happens on July the 9th. We have a positive interaction with law enforcement program at the Gary Public Library in the Ivy Room. Starts at 9 a.m. We have law enforcement agencies, the district attorney, some state legislators who will be there, and we'll be talking to clergy leadership and laymen and young men about how to have a safe and positive interaction with law enforcement.
That is such an amazing thing that needs to be duplicated in every community, because there are so many different just misunderstandings, misperceptions, communication breakdown when it comes to how we interact with law enforcement, particularly our young men. So,
absolutely.
So when that conversation happens, is it open to the community?
It is open to the community. But our target audience is clergy leadership that will then take the message back out to their congregations.
Yes.
Now the third part is the poster campaign. Again, earlier we talked about appealing to the hearts of people and the minds of people, and the poster campaign is designed to do that. We have these posters. They're in our churches. They're in the windows. They're on the little billboards that some of us have. We're putting them up in service stations, convenience stores, barbershops, beauty shops, cleaners, whoever will receive one and display it, we're putting them up.
Well, you know, we have placed a hefty order in our Gary schools. So when our children return, they will see them everywhere. Before we get out of here, we have a couple of minutes. Can you talk a little bit about the content and who came up with this brilliant idea? Was it you, Pastor?
Yes, it was.
Of course it was.
I try not to blow my own horn, but
Well, Tutu, I got you.
yes, it was. Well, here's what we're talking about in terms of messages designed to make you think. Between 2003 and 2011, 3,800 American soldiers were killed in Iraq. During that same period of time, 24,000 African American males were killed in America.
Wow.
That ought to make you stop and think.
Absolutely.
They call Iraq a war. What do you call this? When during this period of time, we were losing more than 3,000 young black men a year to violence, and that number has more than doubled.
Yes,
Has
and
more than
there
doubled.
are a whole catalog of posters that we will show and will be in the various. This is the one that strikes me the most.
It asks the question, are you being groomed for prison?
Oh my goodness.
Prison for profit is a reality of today's America. Stock in the prison industry can be purchased on the New York Stock Exchange. Many of these companies are using the test results of fourth graders to forecast prison cell needs 10 years into the future. 75% of black males in prison today are high school dropouts. And we have a system that is presenting incarceration as a badge of achievement.
And it goes on and on. It's designed to, number one, get their attention, but more important, get to change their mindset.
Get to change their
So as we get ready to wrap up, how does the community get involved? How do we get these posters and get the message out?
Well, call 219-883-2720, 219-883-2720, and tell us about who you are and where you would like a poster, and we will make an effort. We've already invested some resources in getting posters because we want to be able to give out some for free.
Yes, absolutely.
And so if you've got a place that's visible and you want to participate, 219-883-2720, and let them know you're interested in participating in the poster campaign.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Dwight Gardner representing the Baptist Ministers Conference of Gary and vicinity, working in conjunction with the Gary Community School Corporation. You've been watching A Day in the District. I've been your host, Chelsea Whittington. For more information about the Gary schools and enrolling your scholar, make haste and visit garyschools.org. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
WSTG